Was that why you had what they call LEADS? LEADS then was, is it the Local Government Empowerment Development Strategy, which was novel in local government administration in Nigeria?
Yes.
Perhaps maybe we expect it more and see how the funding or how you were able to get resources to drive that kind of policy.
Well, I was privileged to have access to the private sector support. I didn't do what I did using local government because we barely had enough money to pay salaries. But I went in there purposely to get some things done, and I wasn't going to be satisfied unless those things were achieved. You know, so I went out of my way to find resources that were not available to perhaps other local government entities. You know, so to answer your question, it's that ability to pool resources from all sources into your objectives that I think can make local government a success. Today we have a debate between whether local government should be autonomous or whether local government should exist at all. You know, and I'm saying this is the same entity operating at two extremes of the spectrum. You know.
Yeah. So does it mean then that if they were to grant them this financial autonomy, they will not perform any better than they're doing now?
Okay, I hold the view that because you've used the term performance, yeah. How do you measure performance? How do you hold a local government accountable for the funds? At least
the yardstick now is the functions of the local governments as outlined in the Constitution. So if they cannot carry out these responsibilities,
yes.
with the funds, when the funds get to the states, because what we see now is that states don't even conduct these elections in the first place. Mm-hmm. You either have a transition committee chairman or you have a caretaker committee that stays beyond the stipulated time.
Yes.
And so you can't even properly measure across the country what the problem is if the elections don't hold.
I agree with you. And I'm taking your point a little further. If you cannot measure performance, why do you want to hand over even more resources to a system whose performance you cannot measure? Because local government is not accountable to anyone beyond its state assembly. But the funds did not come from the state assembly. The funds came from the federal system. Yet the federal system never conducts an audit to say, what did you do with that money last year? So you're handing money over. You know, the leakage you see in local government, sometimes I even think it's not even the fault of the officials in local government. Anybody you give money to who doesn't have to answer for the funds, but he's going to do what he likes.
The local government administrators will say some of them will tell you that they are being constrained because they are closer to the people. The people tell them this is what we want. But by the time they want to implement what the people want, the governors will pass down instructions as in certain things they should do, and they have to do those things. Otherwise, they're not comfortable in office.
You see, I asked the question, in what forum did this discussion take place? This discussion between the people and the local government. In what forum did it take place? Is there an annual or a town hall meeting, village meeting?
While you were there, did you have conversations with the people?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. But I think my situation was somewhat peculiar because I had an open door policy. Anyone could walk into my office and make a demand. I did not allow for the usual protocol. I didn't think I was any different from anybody in the local government.
Yeah, but Dr. Smith, the same way that the states get funds, is the same way that the local governments are supposed to get funds.
Yes.
From the federal government, from the center.
Yes.
So can we then say they're not accountable to the people because they get the funds from the center?
No, I ask you the same question. Which state has suffered an audit from the federal government in the last 50 years? Even the federal government, have we suffered an external audit? I'm not talking about these internal audits that anyone can assemble documents and that's it.
Yeah, but if it's in a federal system,
yes,
is the federal government expected to audit the states and the states in turn the local government?
To the extent that I cannot design an accountability system on the spot, my only point is that there is a system failure here. It is not different for local government for the state or the federal. It is not different.
So, the local governments now, because if the president says, by the way, that he supports this financial autonomy for the local governments, because that's the way he thinks that development can get to the grassroots. The National Assembly tried the same thing, trying to see how to help the local governments perform better, because some of them cried out, we don't get these funds. And they said, no, we don't want this autonomy, some of them. And that leaves us to the question, should they be scrapped, remove the existence of local government from the laws and let the states do it, or let the governors be held accountable by the law, conduct elections in those states, in those local governments, and let's identify what the challenges really are?
Well, I still go back to this question. Should we scrap the youth corps scheme because it is such a dismal failure? Or should we correct this scheme at a system? I mean, it occurs to me that many of our public systems fail in this country, and we either substitute new ones without correcting the problems, or we just chuck the old ones out and say, well, let's move on.
But the corrective measure in this case is what they recommend as financial autonomy, such that, just as, maybe you tell us how it works in your time, because the impression is that you have a local government chairman, you've got, the same way you have the states, the state houses of assembly.
Yes.
You have the local government chairman in that executive position. Then you have councillors who are supposed to act as that state house of assembly, who will in turn come up with the same way it works. Isn't that how it is?
Only in theory.
Really?
Only in theory. Like I said, in practice, because lawmaking is not, you don't just, or perhaps that's not even accurate. You can assemble people and give them a label that says you are a lawmaker. What is it that has prepared that individual to make law?
Perhaps,
is he familiar with the process or not?
Last week we were supposed to have you here at the beginning of the week, and we also were privileged to have someone who served as a vice chairman in a local government here in Lagos. But there are so many other issues you raised, perhaps that calls for question as to the freedom of local government administrators in some states. Well, does this talk that sometimes they are being tasked? For instance, you could be asked to bring some a certain amount of money for the prosecution of maybe an enterprise by your political party. Does that also exist?
I have to say that no one demanded such money of me. I served under Bola Tinubu, who was governor at the time, and at no time did I get a note from him saying, I need you to hand over. Perhaps it was because there was no money to hand over anyway. He was supporting local government from his purse. So I didn't have, I hear these things. It's not as if I've not heard of it. It was not my experience.